My name is Jennifer Hernandez, and I'm here to talk kind of about how I found Christ in my life. Specifically about my values along the way. Values are quite a big subject, and for me have often been a struggle. I was raised here in New Mexico by my parents, Luis and Dina Hernandez over there. And these two people are like as Catholic as you could get. It's kind of funny. But growing up, every aspect of my life was Catholicism. Both of my parents have practiced and have devoted every part of their lives to being faithful. With that came Catholic morals and values, and I was sent to St. Charles Catholic Borromeo School and then St. Pius for high school, which meant I was surrounded by Catholic in every moment at school and every moment at home. However, the Catholic life at home was different than what I had observed in my friends or in other people around me. The faith that my parents had showed me at home was not a religion or a practice, it was a way of life. At home, I was always happy, I was faithful and prayerful. I trusted in God always and had peace. I was joyful and always put others before me. My childhood was fun, always filled with spirit and love. As I got older, however, I struggled making Catholicism my own. I had heard God knocking at my door a lot in my life, and I had always chosen to ignore it. Revelations 3:20 says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will enter his house and dine with him, and he with me." My issue was that I wasn't answering the door. I have a thick head, and I hate being told what to do, and I question everything. When it came to values, you better believe I questioned those twice as much. My values as a child consisted of being respectful and always thinking of others before myself. I spoke politely to people, and I helped work if there was work to be done. We were taught to contribute to the family. I was taught to be honest, loving, caring, and most of all, to always put God first. Growing up, I practiced these things. When I would get into trouble at school or lied or spoke disrespectfully, my parents would sit me down and talk with me. They would tell me what I did wrong in the situation, and they would guide me to an action that would basically cultivate being who I was raised to be, which was loving, caring, honest. Obviously, because I'm stubborn and wanted to learn many things on my own, my parents had to have countless lessons and conversations with me. My time in middle school was filled with many trips to the principal's office and many times where I had turned away from who I truly was at my core. Amongst all of this, I felt a great deal of pressure to be the perfect child that never messed up. John 4:18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. And so one who fears is not yet perfect in love." I put worldly opinions above God's and rejected his love in failing to recognize my good qualities. I didn't love myself, which stunted my relationship with God. Growing up, I felt I was often compared to my sister by previous teachers and other people in our lives. She had perfect grades and never got into any trouble. I felt that there was something wrong with me because I wasn't like my sister. Why couldn't I just go to school, have a good day, come home, and not get into any trouble and have no issues? I felt like I was riddled with complexity and hardship. At school, I felt a call to be a good student and a behaved child, but I also felt like I had to have many friends and be popular and liked. This was a temptation to do what all the other kids did. I would be disruptive because I would talk too much in class and be too sarcastic with my teachers and basically unfocused in general. In the background of all of that, I also had to deal with juvenile type 1 diabetes, which I was diagnosed with at the age of 9. So I was the freak who had to count the carbs at lunch and go to the nurse and check my numbers and take insulin shots. My alarms or devices would go off in class, and I would have to leave to go fix my low or whatever. Diabetes is often associated with being overweight, which is a huge misconception of the disease. Not many people know what diabetes is, or that there's two types that have no similarity. Type 1 is an immune deficiency disease, and my body essentially killed off a portion of my pancreas. So with a disease that no one really understood, it made me stand out in a way that I never wanted to be recognized for. It made me even more self-conscious than I already was about my appearance and caused me to want to hide my disease. The nurse at school became one of my close friends because she understood what I was going through, and I felt safe with her. But this only separated me further from my classmates. I was in constant battle with myself, and I was getting into trouble only passing my classes with B's and A's, but to me, they were never good enough. I had a disease that no one had or understood, making me stand out, and I only had a couple of friends, and I was nowhere near being popular. The only adult at the school that liked me, other than my mom, who was a teacher at the school, was the nurse, and I felt totally alone. I found myself failing to satisfy my parents and never being liked by everyone. I hated myself for not being able to be good at anything. I would get so angry at myself for being a failure, and I would look in the mirror and look at myself with disgust. With no real release of these feelings, I started to hit myself, and I soon found myself using a thumbtack, scissors, blades, or anything sharp to cut myself. As I grew up, all these feelings seemed to be blaring, and the reality took over my life. I felt that I was nothing, and there was nothing I could do that would make me good enough. I went into high school and continued with the same issues, and every time that I cut myself, I was just watching the last one heal. I would make up excuses to go home sick just so I could sleep and be by myself. It just continued to get worse through high school. My sophomore year, I made the junior varsity team, but I was so nervous about being bad that I never actually got the time to enjoy it. I wasn't skinny like the other players, and they were way better at soccer than I was. I was consumed with insecurities. My junior year, I finally got into some AP courses and was finally following in my sister's footsteps. I took AP US History and AP Government, but I hated every second of it. I don't know why I took those classes. I hate history. I had to read a ton, which I hate, and study so hard, but I never passed the exams. I thought I sucked at school. I had built up so many false ideas of reality. I always thought Alicia was so much better. However, in writing this talk, my mom actually pulled out our report cards, and we actually had pretty similar grades. But I just built up a lot of false ideas, I guess. We scored similar grades, and however, I couldn't see the truth. I was so sick of myself, I didn't even bother to cut myself anymore. I just wanted to die. I would drive home from work, and I would think on my drive home that I could just run into a tree and no one would ever care, and no one would even notice, and it would just look like an accident. I was so lost in my failures and flaws that I became angry with God. How could he have made such a mistake with me? And how could he create such a below-average human? I hated church. It was a waste of my time. And I hated anything Catholic, and I hated God. Every step that my parents took to show me the truth, I ran in the opposite direction. I shortly turned to alcohol and weed to numb my pain. I couldn't have any scars. I had too many. And at least if I was high, I couldn't hear any annoying thoughts of sadness and nervousness. The people I worked with and my friends made it easy to run. We would drink or smoke and everything would disappear, and the only thing that I had to worry about was my parents never finding out. I didn't care about anything, and I was so consumed with disdain for life, there was nobody who understood what I was feeling. I didn't want to try in life. Why would I even think about what sort of person I was becoming? However, without realizing, I became a selfish and horrible person. As life went on, I went day to day just feeling numb, doing what I had to say to be a functioning human so people wouldn't ask too many questions. During the second semester of my senior year, an opportunity came along to spend a month in Poland for a mission trip, spreading the word of God to children. Seeing a chance that would send me off to travel and be a part of something was my first glimmer of hope. It was a chance to do something my parents could be proud of. Preparing for my trip, my mom told me that I needed to shape up and dedicate my life to God because this no longer was about me. I was being sent to evangelize to young kids, and to do that with a wrong heart and no foundation in God would be detrimental to those kids. At that moment, my mom put a purpose of something other than myself, and I had a goal. In the preparation for the mission, we had meetings and responsibilities to take care of. Every meeting we prayed before we started and after, and I started to journal my days and praying throughout the week. I would actually pay attention in church and be present. When we started our journey to Poland, it was much different than what I thought it to be. It was with a great group of people, but I didn't really know them extremely well. Traveling there took all forms of transportation you can think of, and traveling in a big group with people you don't know very well can be kind of uncomfortable. We ran into some stressful situations between making sure we got on the right plane to making sure we got off at the right train stop. However, in every single instant of the trip, we surrounded ourselves in prayer. In traveling in prayer, it allows you to see how God works through our lives. He got us to Poland safely. We continued the trip, ending each day with a small Bible study session with our team. The entire 24 days that we were out there, we prayed every step of the way. The group that we went with showed me a different kind of friendship that I hadn't really experienced. A friendship that was filled with love and care for each other and an honest and genuine relationship. Looking back on it now, it was a friendship with people and with God that I was taught to keep when I was a child. Surrounded by people who had the same goal, the goal of loving God above everything else and sharing values of love, care, and honesty. I found God and real love in Him. I was reminded and brought back to the same joy and peace that I felt as a child. I had been saved from myself. I had entered into my relationship with God, and when I say this, I mean a real relationship where I spent time with Him. I got to know Him and put my trust in Him completely. Going to Poland, there was a lot of unknowns and many things that could have gone wrong. However, I felt nothing but peace and calmness the whole time. I think this is where my big conversion started to happen. I have always heard to put your trust and faith in God, but I had never done it with my whole heart. In that trip, I completely gave my everything to God, and I got to feel what His grace actually felt like. I saw Him work in everything that I did, and I got to see and feel what it was like to truly give trust in Him. I felt like God had chosen me, and I belonged to Him. I was created for Him, and He was going to lead me where He needed me. I had a purpose, and it was for God. Through Poland, I learned how to be Catholic for me. I wasn't thrilled to leave Poland. I honestly didn't almost get on the plane. But I got home, and I was excited for my new start. I was a freshman starting at UNM, and I was going to move into the dorms with my best friend. So we had both gone out to Poland, so we both were on the same journey, which was really cool. So we came back from Poland, and we moved into the dorms, and we journaled every time we got the chance, and we studied the Bible together, and we're experiencing freedom from our parents together for the first time. However, the freedom that came with moving out of my parents' home also came with a lot of temptations. I could stay out as long as I wanted, and I didn't have anyone to answer to or explain myself to. And I had recently quit my job shortly after I had started the semester. I wanted to volunteer at the hospital and work towards my dream of becoming a doctor. My work friends love to party, so we rented a hotel room and were ready to end my 3 years of working for the company. After my shift ended, we drove to the hotel, and with butterflies in my stomach, I feared quitting wasn't the right thing to do. I was extremely nervous. When we got to the hotel room, I did what I knew. I knew how to numb my feelings with drugs and alcohol. So I went with the full intention of drinking my nervousness away. I had reverted to the vices of my past instead of the values that I was taught. That is the thing about choices. You make them based on what you've practiced throughout life, and when choices come up, it can be difficult to not choose your habits. I was no longer living intentionally, and I chose my vices rather than the values I was taught. We played beer pong with shots of rum, and I was so drunk that I couldn't even stand. I had a panic attack in the bathroom, and I was a mess. There were only a few people from work there at the time, and someone who I thought to be a friend turned out to be someone who would hurt me the most. I spent the night with the same people who didn't care about me, and it was full of drunkenness and mistakes. I had to deal with the reality that my so-called friends didn't care if my life was destroyed. However, the lessons that I had learned in Poland helped me realize that these friends weren't worth my time. I think that one of the reasons I was meant to go to the mission trip was to finally see who I was to God. On the mission, I was there to help and teach. I saw my story help the kids, and God showed me I was actually worth something. I had a hard time trying to unravel all these emotions and realities and trying to make sense of it all. I have to be content with knowing I needed something big to show me that I needed the values I grew up with. I think that if I didn't have such a horrible thing of my friends totally turning their backs on me, I wouldn't be where I am today. I might have kept playing with the boundaries and partying and being selfish. This, I think, was the light in all the darkness. I had learned a lesson that I had desperately needed. God's rules and his values are there to protect us and to give us real life. John 10:10 says, I came so that they might have life and have it more abundantly. I honestly do not know where I would be if my parents wouldn't have given me a real moral foundation and shown me how to live. I have already made so many mistakes even with that foundation. I have felt and have experienced real darkness. I don't know where I'm meant to be, but I know that I cannot forget who I truly am at my core. Reading what a value is, the definition showed me exactly what my foundation was. The definition is, the center of our goals is the combination of aspirations and preferences, which attracts a person and moves us to attainment. It is the axis of that person's life. My foundation was all of my ideals that I was given. All of my falls have made me learn the lesson of realizing where and what my principles actually are. Learning how to be polite and do my dishes for the family when they are busy, doing chores alongside my mom, being truthful, never putting myself first, being aware of the people around me, being humble, and watching my parents turn to God in every single situation has created my values in my heart. They are values that God has given us in his word. They have been written on my heart because I was created in the image and likeness of him. Knowing this makes me often think, where is my focus? Every time I was led astray, my focus was on myself and how I could be gratified. Though taking my focus and putting it on God has helped me to heal from everything in my past. There is nothing I could do to change my choices in the past, but it is my choice today to pick up the morals that God has given me and use them every single day. By waking up and giving him time in prayer, I take my selfishness out of the day and I focus on God. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Just like this scripture, God gave me nothing I couldn't handle, and he has given me hope, strength, and a way to stand under the hardships. I realized that God has carried me through all this. I felt a pull to pray often and pray daily. I noticed that when I sinned, it pulled me away from God, and I couldn't see clearly. I didn't like this feeling, so I often go to confession to feel a closeness to God that nothing else has ever made me feel as close as confession does. I can see now that God can take anything, even something horrible, and turn it into something beautiful. In looking through all this and talking to my family, they have always questioned if I will ever go back to who I was previously. The question if I will ever let go of my faith and party and live in the world again. Thinking about this, I know I will always make mistakes through my life, because I am human. But my faith is different. I found God, and I have made my faith my own. I no longer live for what others want of me. I do not make right choices because I logically know it is right, but I make right choices because of my love for God. A love that makes me never want to stray or go against what he expects of me. I finally understand something my mother has told me my whole life, which is Psalm 139:14. I praise you because I am wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My very self, you know. I am so thankful for everything in my life and all my experiences that I had, because otherwise I wouldn't be who I am today.